not as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
For my monster from his slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
he did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east to the master bedroom where the vampires feast, the ghouls all came from their humble abodes to get a jolt from my electrode.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
They did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun. The party had just begun. The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son. The scene was rocking, all were digging the sounds. Igor on chains, backed by his baying hounds. The coffin bangers were about to arrive with their vocal group, the Crypt Kicker Five.
They played the mash.
They played the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They
smash.
played the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They played the mash.
They played the monster mash. Out from his coffin Rex's voice did ring. Seemed he was troubled by just one thing. Opened the lid and shook his fist and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist?"
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
And it's a graveyard
It's now
smash.
the mash.
It's caught on in a flash.
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster mash. Now everything's cool, Drax a part of the band, and my monster mash is the hit of the land. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them Boris sent you.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash,
The monster mash.
and do my graveyard
Then you can
smash.
mash.
You'll catch on in a flash.
Then you can mash.
Then you can monster mash.
Mash.
Easy, boy, you impetuous young boy. Mash good.
Monster mash. Monster mash. Monster mash. Monster mash.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Keith is always getting dressed right at the beginning of the show. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, John Sebastian. And America. Oh, he's already busted it open.
America.
Oh, yes,
Because
thank you.
it's Oktoberfest, even though these aren't Oktoberfest beers.
Well,
still,
exactly. We can always
you gotta
celebrate a
drink
good beer
for Oktoberfest, and it's American, even though it's
we got to thank our good buddy Jacob who brought these in.
Yes,
he literally hand delivered these tonight.
he did.
That's crazy.
Neil paid people to deliver to us, and they failed. Jacob said, "I'm doing this myself." He was like Thanos. He said, "I'm doing this myself."
He chose the American way.
Mm.
I like
He said innovation is key, and I'm going to innovate, and I'm going to deliver these beers myself.
He did because he
You don't have,
he had
he
his
brought
daughter.
back real
You don't have any
service.
3D glasses, do you? Because this label's actually in 3D.
It
Oh,
looks,
is
yeah,
it? Oh,
yeah.
you got to
If you
show
ha-
it. Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
the red and blue glasses,
It looks like it would work.
That would
Look at
work.
That'd be really
that.
cool. Here's the thing. You mentioned him being American. Well, he did have his daughter Reagan in the back, so he was He's like,
There
I
you
have
go.
Reagan and beer,
Did
and
he
we're
name
happy.
her
He-
after the greatest president we've ever had?
I think
Yes.
so.
Oh.
I think that
He
that was
wanted a
exactly
presidential
where he
name,
named-
and
why he
Melissa
named it.
didn't like any of them, but she was okay with Reagan. So
He actually changed his profile pic to him in the oval.
yeah,
Did
he
you
did.
see
I
that?
saw that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
taken
He's
over.
gonna run.
It seems that the
I saw that
the man that
he
is
might
there.
be taking you on as vice president. I just like to be press secretary.
We're going to try to bring peace.
Because
back
I'm
to the
going to
country.
give it to the media. I just want to be press. He could be president. You could be vice, but I want to be press
I
secretary.
think we're fine with that.
Vice.
I'm okay with you delivering our mean tweets.
They're gonna come out and they're gonna be like, so why is President Burris? Because he can. Shut up.
He brought us beer. I like beer. That's
exactly what I'm doing.
Hey, pass the can opener. I want or the bottle opener. I want to open
Pass
it.
it around.
What do you have now? You got to name the
Okay,
flavor.
well, were we all gonna give it a try? Each one.
he wanted us to
This
circle
one
them
is
around.
the Gimme Some of That, which is a brown ale. Okay, it does on there. I just can't read. Apparently, it's a brown ale with coconut, chocolate, and caramel. So
coconut, chocolate, and caramel.
it smells
Actually,
amazing.
If the coconut is masked enough, I may like it. I'm not a huge fan of coconut. Sean,
I'm
here
not
you
a
go.
stout. I'm not a stout
Ooh,
guy.
well, it's
Here-
not. It's a
here's
brown
the-
ale. This is really good. This is like a nice
Open
dessert beer.
the blackberry Macron.
This is not
Well,
a
wait,
stout.
no, I was gonna say explain.
Macro.
There's two stouts, and one of them is a.
That's
is
an
an
ale. No,
Okay.
no. These are both. This is a brown ale.
Okay.
I thought because of the flavors it'd be a stout, but then I just read the bottle and it says brown ale.
well,
'cause I'm
that
retarded.
tells you right
It
there.
smells like wine.
Well, it's a fruit ale.
I ain't gonna
so-
lie. The picture on the front kind of made me realize, or
See,
made
I
me
like
think of
I like
Manischewitz.
I like fruit ales and meads.
Brings
So
back bad
if you don't
memories.
like it, I probably. Well, this is a really good like dessert type beer. Like it has a nice sweetness.
What
to it.
about
It's really
you,
good.
Sean? What do you think?
Very, very fruity.
fruity.
You want
Okay.
to pass
Very
the bottles
fruity.
around and pop?
Hold
pop
on,
yours
hold on.
open?
I haven't. I was say I
Let's
haven't.
say pop-
It's open. I haven't tasted.
We'll all go.
I like it.
or
It's
we
very
can all
light.
Go this way, I
that
guess.
blackberry ale is very light.
Very light. Pass yours over.
I like my oatmeal. I want this one back.
Okay. But you gotta pass them around.
Sean, here you go. You
Here,
take a sip of
gosh,
that one.
Gosh,
right.
Jacob, this is for you.
Oatmeal.
I've got the coconut.
Now I have the blackberry.
That's oatmeal stout.
They're trying theirs, and I've got the coconut.
Ooh, that is good. Nice blackberryness to it. I still like that one
Oh,
better. That is good.
I dig
isn't
it. Even with the coconut.
It's a nice dessert type beer. Like it
Yeah,
tastes
that
really.
really
It does have a
is.
sweetness to it.
That's got it's almost like chocolate.
Now we've
Yeah.
all been vaccinated.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't.
Hey, natural immunity.
I didn't
okay?
say who hadn't. I just
I
said
didn't.
no, we
I
hadn't.
didn't describe how we were vaccinated.
Now that smells like a vanilla. This is caramel.
Oh man,
Caramel.
these
All
are
three
all
of these are
really
great.
Good. Man, that
Jacob,
oatmeal
you picked
stout
some
is
winners.
amazing. These are all really good.
You know, honestly, I think this blackberry Macron it beats.
I'm good with any of them, so whichever ones y'all like
I don't
the
like
most.
that one.
To
You didn't like
me-
that one, okay?
Oh, you didn't like the
The
what-
coconut,
the
brown
oat
ale.
coconut.
Oh, the coconut.
Yeah.
The macaron. This reminds me of.
Well, you two fight it out unless you want this one.
No,
but-
here you go.
Okay.
I don't. I
We're
want
going
the
back to what we
oatmeal.
originally had. So he wants the oatmeal. Here's your
Okay,
blackberry.
all right, I'll take that. That's fine. You know I like fruity stuff.
Well, I
anyway.
was gonna say this.
I'm a little fruity.
I think here's the funny thing is
You don't have to tell me twice.
we randomly divvied them out, but the ones we started with are the ones each of us liked the best, and that's what we ended up with anyway. So it was meant to be.
It worked out.
I do
but
like
I
that,
I
yeah.
will say I like that better than the summer shandy.
The oatmeal's not bad. Now, I don't
Yeah.
like it better than the summer shandy.
do.
And
Yeah,
I don't
that-
like it better than just a straight up blue moon.
That's actually
but-
a kind of a mild stout. It's not very strong, but it's good. The oatmeal stout, like it's not
I
very
was going to
strong.
say that's
Yeah.
all of these are kind of mild mannered in
Yeah.
terms of their taste. They're not overpowering, which
Yeah.
is the right kind of
Yeah.
balance I think you would want.
So it's O'Fallon.
O'Fallon.
It's a local brewery from St. Louis.
Well, good on them. Give
Jacob,
them some props.
you did. Yeah, Jacob, you did good. You
Thank
done good,
you
man.
very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the beer, Jacob.
It says we love beer on the bottle.
I love beer. I
We
like
do
beer.
love beer.
Okay,
we like
but
beer.
no,
To see
really.
the,
Here, I want to give them all the reps.
5.9%. That's not bad. That's a
There it
Yeah,
decent-
did we show all the bottles?
O'Fallon Dads. There it is.
Dad's Cookie Company is what it
O'Fallon.
says.
Yeah, it is. It's good beer.
That's how you know it's good.
Alrighty, guys, we got
Some
a
of
good
that.
show ahead. Obviously, we're going to be liquored up here.
more of that.
But no, we got 2 reviews. This
We do.
is the
It's-
week.
It's the beginning of
Halloween. Happy Halloween!
Happy with an
Now-
emphasis on the happy.
Absolutely. And I do want to make a small minor note for anybody who has not caught our last show. I had to re-upload it today. I was talking to you all as the intro was rolling out.
There were some
YouTube
problems.
had a minor gripe from a certain NBC Universal. I'll just name drop. I don't care. Trying to block our Candyman review, saying that we used some footage that we weren't allowed to. However, it is protected under fair use. Obviously, I've refuted these copyright.
We get them all the time.
I get them
Yeah.
on every single
Yeah,
review I
it's nothing
post,
new.
and every single one of them I refute, and I always end up almost getting. I don't think this was the first one. Candyman was the first one
Where
that
they
I
didn't
actually had to
accept it, yeah.
appeal because they didn't accept it, and they didn't accept the appeal, so I had to take it down. So I reposted it, as well as last week's show. I had to repost it, which means we don't get any views. We had 1 million views on that video. Can you
Oh,
believe
man.
it? They ripped us off from
1
1 million
million.
views.
Yeah.
because
I couldn't believe
that
it.
video had the truth in it.
Exactly.
And NBC Universal did not like that we were speaking the
They
truth.
denied our truth. They denied
They
our
denied
truth.
our-
So what I
Speak
did,
truth to power.
and that's what I did. I re-edited the video.
I hate that phrase so much. I hate that phrase so much.
You know, everybody thought our phrase in our generation that sucked was YOLO. No, your truth, my truth. That whole entire saying, that is the crappiest phrase ever. Nothing's further from the truth. But
So,
no,
2 reviews.
I re-uploaded last week's episode and the review. I had to put up a nice banner covering the video and basically not use their video, but just basically saying, hey, thanks you two for sticking up for us.
Yeah.
Thanks but not thanks. And, screwing over NBC Universal. Those videos are up. You can watch our last week's show. It's available now. Just the reviews blocked out. Sorry. Hopefully these won't. So far they've been posted on YouTube, and I haven't gotten a copyright claim that'll block them.
I don't think anybody's really going to care much about Scooby-Doo from 2002. And then
Hey,
as far
that's
as
good Scooby-Doo from 2002.
Yeah.
Ooh, right.
And as far as the sequel to Venom goes, we've really not had a lot of problems, I think, from Sony in general anyways.
I mean,
so
I don't look. The last one that I had a bigger problem with was Promising Young Woman, and it
And that
ended
was
up-
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and I got
Yeah.
that one passed, and so
Well,
oh well.
I got a big problem with Sony.
oh,
This movie that we're about to review.
no doubt. That is our first review. We promised it last week. Here is none other than yes, our review of Venom. Let there be carnage.
With over a decade of Marvel Studios crafting what is now the massively popular and successful Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's easy to forget just how bad movies based on Marvel characters used to be. Just in case people ever do start forgetting, however, Sony is around to remind us. While Marvel has regained the majority of their character film rights, Sony still holds the rights to one of their most iconic characters, Spider-Man, and any characters originating within the pages of Spider-Man comic books. And while Sony has struck success partnering with Disney and Marvel Studios to integrate Spider-Man himself into the MCU, other characters have not been so fortunate. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, released this weekend, and while a financial success, the movie reminds us all why we fear the day Sony may decide to pick up its toys and stop sharing Spider-Man with Disney. Directed by Anthony Serkis, the brilliant actor behind Gollum, brilliance in motion capture acting does not equate to brilliance in directing. Case in point, the Venom sequel. While the first film was cliché and lackluster, it offered up enough entertainment that I was willing to overlook its flaws for the hope of a better overall franchise. Well, Serkis has delivered the second outing, and it's more of the same bad, with less of the good. Starring Tom Hardy once again as Eddie Brock and the alien symbiote Venom, the sequel unleashes Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, for the ultimate 90s nostalgia throwdown. And while diehard fans who grew up with Spider-Man in that time period may have a nerdgasm watching these two titans of Spider-Man villainy throw down, the movie doesn't offer anything of substance. Tom Hardy as Eddie is still entertaining, though the script doesn't give him much to work with. Hardy still proves he could be a solid Venom, if only put in the right hands, and much of his banter with Venom produces the only entertaining parts in the film. Harrelson on paper seemed like a perfect fit for the sociopathic Carnage, but is wasted in the film. With returning casts such as Hardy and Michelle Williams, and newcomers like Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris, just like the first movie, the sequel is packed with talent, but wastes them all. Luckily, the film has a short runtime and gets straight to the point. Venom versus Carnage. Though even their fight is overly predictable. It may please those who care about nothing other than two CGI blobs having it out, but Venom Let There Be Carnage doesn't offer much to set itself apart from the generic Marvel films of pre-MCU days. So while superhero films have evolved, Sony is here to make sure we never forget the horrors that once were. I give Venom Let There Be Carnage 1.5 out of 4 stars.
Ooh, 1.5 out of 4 stars.
I gave the first one 2 stars, and I still
Yeah.
hold by that. And I think the first one was honestly better than this one. So I really couldn't, because I thought about doing 2 stars for this one, and I'm like, I can't. It's like this one doesn't improve on anything from the original. And in fact, at least the original, I think, sets up the characters better, even if there's not a lot of depth there, and sets up the story better. Whereas this one, normally, like, when I saw the movie's going to be 90 minutes, I was like, oh, this is great because it's not going to have a bunch of filler. It's just going to get straight to the point. But honestly,
I know,
it doesn't have any, like, the 90 minutes is just...
I truly thought Anthony Serkis was going to do a great job. A small misspoke.
Maybe Anthony Serkis
told
did
you.
direct this movie.
I told you.
Let's
Andy
hope.
Serkis.
Anthony
didn't.
Serkis is real. He did the motion capture for Hannibal Lecter.
That's
I've seen
right.
it.
Well, and Anthony Serkis is really who Andy Serkis is before he turns into Carnage.
Oh.
See,
Yeah,
Andy
I don't.
Serkis is Carnage.
I was drinking when
Terrible
I wrote that, so no.
Under the influence.
Writers, all writers drink and do drugs for creativity. So you know,
But no, I thought I agree.
slip up.
One little small slip
One
up.
slip up.
It was too late for you to come back, and although you did
I
come
did
back,
come back at like 1 a.m. I told Sean
he had,
about that.
he had
so.
to get his
I
phone.
left my
your
phone
phone,
here.
yeah.
Well, I'm sitting
I
there.
get up and I start pinging my phone because I'm like, where's my phone at? I'm in my basement. I fell asleep watching Squid Game, which is really good, by the way. And I wake up at like 1:45, and I realize like I haven't had my phone since I got back to your house. So I try to.
Did you do Find My Phone or whatever?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, and not only that, but I'm sitting here and I just wrapped up editing everything.
I texted Brandon and I'm like,
And-
are you awake?
Well, it was funny before I read your text, though. I'm sitting
You hear
there
it pinging.
and I'm like, I just hear a ping, and I'm like, did I accidentally hit my iPad? So then all of a sudden I look at my phone and I see a missed text. I was like, I bet you Keith left his phone here. Sure enough.
It was in here.
But no, it was funny
It's
because
okay, I used my iPad.
I had
I found
already
it.
texted you that I wanted to correct that, and we'll correct it for
We will.
the interwebs later. But no amount of correcting could help this film, truth be told. This film was god awful. And like you said,
I don't know about god awful.
I'm
but
going.
yeah.
I did
going-
give it 1.5, even though I'm over here defending it.
I don't know why, because I'll tell you right now, like you said, it's a sequel. I expect much better.
You expected to do better. Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
a different director.
No, regression.
It really was.
Yeah.
And even with the fight, knowing what the fight was supposed to be about and how excited we were, and now I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I expect this, and I'm totally okay with that. Spider-Man 3 gave us a better Venom than these two films. And I know people who will disagree with me, and I actually prefer Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 over both of these Venom movies.
Well, I will agree that I like
And
Spider-Man 3 as a movie better than the
Yeah.
2 Venom movies. I partially agree. I like the way the symbiote in Spider-Man 3 looks better than in these movies. I think they look too CGI in Venom's own movies. But we definitely have a way better Eddie with Tom Hardy than we did with Topher Grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate Topher Grace.
Well,
I would agree with
even Topher Grace has since then said, I have no idea why they hired me for that role.
Well, but I think he does well as Eddie Brock in terms of like some of the comedic relief. I think he's like when he's sitting there and he's like, talking to the police chief, and he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm dating
Eddie
your
Brock
daughter."
is supposed to be a loser, but he's not supposed to be this scrawny nerd like Peter Parker. He's kind of like the opposite side of the same coin. Yes, he's a loser, but he's still this bulky, like
he's not a
handsome
loser.
guy
He's a
that-
screw up.
Yes.
There's a
Okay,
difference.
I was gonna say I don't get
He is a
loser
screw-up.
from.
Yeah.
Well,
Eddie-
that's the
or
term
from
that
Tom.
Venom uses to put him down. When he's not really a loser, but he thinks of himself as a loser.
But,
because he is, he screws up.
I mean, and I'll give you that. I don't think Topher Grace. Like, here's the thing: the reason why I say it was a better Venom was because, for one, we know the backstory now since Spider-Man 3 came out. More than a decade ago. That's crazy. But it's the fact that they shoehorned Venom into that movie. It wasn't supposed to be Venom in that film. It was mostly supposed
to be Sandman and Harry, and that was supposed to be the only
The fact
two.
that they shoehorned 3 villains for the arc that he has, it sucks because Venom is a better, I think, villain and central character to tell a full story on. However, with these movies being set apart to do that, it shows just why I think you have an MCU with Marvel Studios working the way it does, because Sony and obviously DC still have not been able to get the proper reins on these superhero films, and MCU is the only one that can do it.
Yeah, I feel like Spider-Man with Marvel is Tom Holland. I don't like him better than I liked Tobey Maguire.
Oh, I do, but I like the Sam
do
Raimi
think-
movies better.
Oh, see, I think I'm the opposite. Like, I think the actor's better in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but I like the Marvel Spider-Man movies.
Ooh,
I feel like
yeah,
they
I know.
fit I feel like they fit the momentum that the rest of the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah,
Universe
I
has
agree with
created.
that.
So I like that they are. I feel like they're part of the same world. I don't feel like.
But I think that's intentional.
Well, yeah, of course it
I mean,
is,
they-
but
they
I
had
give
to
him
do that.
props for that. It
Yeah.
feels good. It feels like it fits. His relationship with Iron Man is unbelievable. It's great. I think it sets up so much more emotion than anything Tobey Maguire ever set up. But
I don't know.
if these movies, I feel like if Marvel had a hold of Venom in terms of making it the way they want to without Sony's attachment,
absolutely.
it would have been good.
Well,
Yes.
we
But-
see that in the. I don't want to
Well,
give
you don't want to
anything
spoil
away.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But there is a crucial in-credit scene that I feel has Marvel written all over it.
Yes.
And I think that ultimately that gives me hope for what is to come with this character.
But it sucks that they're going to have to get to a third movie with Venom in it for it to actually be Venom.
Yes,
And,
true.
And that sucks. The first movie gave me hope. This movie takes me kind of. I've lost
A
hope.
step back.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
lost hope for it. Same thing with Zack Snyder. Like Man of Steel gave me a little glimmer. Okay, they're only going to get better from here. No, they didn't. And this is the same way with Venom.
And it's one of those things because, like I said in my review, and I still stand by it. I do like Tom Hardy as Eddie. I think like him, the anxiety and the disheveled look, and like his acting, I think is pretty good for that character. And granted, do I think it could be better? Yes, but I think with better direction, he would be because it's Tom Hardy. We already know he can act.
Yeah.
So I'm completely fine with him keeping the role because I don't think he's what makes it bad. It's just they have a lot of talent like Woody Harrelson, Michelle Williams, Naomi Harris, and none of these characters, especially in a sequel, like Michelle Williams felt like she had a purpose in the first movie, even if she wasn't utilized the best. In this one, it's like they're like, oh yeah, she's still a character, so we have to figure out a way to include her.
Yeah.
It's like they could have done everything they did in the movie without those characters.
Right. Well, they only set her up for a crucial plot point that only serves to, I guess, keep Eddie somewhat interested in being, fighting his moral battle.
Yeah.
But really, even then,
Really, she's only there to bail him out of jail, and that's it.
more or less.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And
They
to give
could've-
him something.
They
to-
could have done that with anybody. Like, it didn't have to be her.
But
yeah.
it's to give him some hope of. But that's the thing. They make it seem like you still want him to fight for her and that relationship. But it's like I just don't understand the point of her sticking around. They kind of make her just a flat character
Yep.
who's just there to either bail
like
him
his
out.
babysitter
They
now.
throw
Or
her in
they
there
get-
for She-Venom.
Yeah,
Briefly.
Yes, exactly.
Again, they did it in the first
Yeah,
one. It's
yeah.
like, why do every movie has
Well,
to
and
have
then of
her?
course in this one they overlook the fact it's like, okay, well now in this one we'll make him hug because
Yeah.
they're right in front of her fiance.
Yeah.
But I just thought all the character arcs fell flat, the plot fell flat. I mean, I really truly thought, again, same problem as I had with the first one. It starts out not strong, but well enough to keep me motivated and interested in what's coming next. And then they literally just get to about the midway point and say, we've introduced the characters, we've sort of introduced their motives, let's just get to the final fight.
Yeah.
And then all the crap that happens in between is completely... It's not even about it being pointless. It's just that, okay, it's so contrived.
It doesn't lead to
just to
anything,
get to,
really.
like
Yeah.
you said in the review, the blobs can fight. And even the blobs fighting
'Cause that's
wasn't
what it
that
look-
entertaining.
That's what it looks like on
No.
screen, and it's like,
Yep. Too up close.
I think of like what the Russos did with like Doctor Strange and Endgame and Infinity War, or what Taika Waititi's done with Thor,
Yes.
or even James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxies, and the fight choreographies and all those movies.
Yes.
Like the spectacle is so awesome.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi,
The
yeah.
whole entire the
Yes.
bus fight
And I'm
was
sitting
beautifully
here-
choreographed.
Thinking about all of those fights, and then in the Venom movies, they don't even do anything cool with these creatures that you can almost do anything with. They just have them like span out and engulf each other, and
Well, and that's almost
and
part
like,
of the
it's just
problem.
this whirling mess.
It's like they have so many different possibilities. They just try to cram a bunch of little things in there to make this ridiculous outcome that it's like, okay, this is literally what I felt like as a 5-year-old playing with the plastic toys, and I envisioned, and it's
And
like,
you're just like,
yeah, exactly, and it's like,
in the comic books, Venom is always like turning the appendages into axes and swords and
Yeah, Carnage does that
balls
once.
with spikes on them, and Carnage does that once, very very briefly in the prison
Yeah.
escape, where he turns one of his arms into an
then
axe.
it turns into a tornado.
Yeah, and that was the
That was
stupidest.
dumb.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know what he's doing here.
Terrible.
yeah, that was really stupid.
I was like, where the hell did this come from?
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know. It's
Hey.
like it was just out of place.
He's Carnage. He can do whatever he wants.
I
Yeah.
guess so.
You should know.
Let
that
him
he
be.
Is, yeah, he's Carnage.
Let there be carnage.
Let there be.
He is. He is
Which
Carnage.
I told Keith, I said that line at the end,
Carnage.
would have been great
I'm gonna keep saying.
if they would have never said his name to begin with.
Yeah.
Or never even named the character.
By the
Yes.
time he,
just let him say, "Let there be carnage,"
Right.
and then you're like, "Oh, so that's going to be his name."
I mean,
Like,
already,
don't-
anytime a character
stupid.
like says the title of the movie, it's kind of hokey. But the
Yes.
fact that they had
We
like
have our
him-
good buddy Logan who
Yeah.
agrees with that.
But anytime-
except for Lord of the Rings.
well, because they
There's
don't,
an
they don't,
exception.
because they don't name drop like Lord of the Rings, the two towers. They
Right,
mention
right,
the two
right.
towers because they're a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, in this, when he's like, "Let there be carnage," is like it could have sounded badass, but the fact that you've already said carnage 5 times,
Yeah.
hinting at who you
Yeah.
are, yeah.
Well, and not only that, but
No, I mean, he gives himself the name. He's
yes,
like,
exactly. This okay.
Yeah.
This was
Meet
part
Carnage.
of the yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Well, I was like, where did you just randomly pull that out of your ass? Not to mention, you also had Venom.
He's Carnage. He said it 5
Well,
times.
and I
He can
told
pull
you
whatever
this.
he wants out of there.
But I mentioned this to Keith about the first film, and again, I know you kind of defended it, which is fine.
I defend that they're sentient, not that they still have to learn.
Like I hated the scene where he jumps in the. I guess it's what city are they in? San Francisco. It's not the. I
yeah,
forget what-
Golden Gate Bridge,
Yeah,
San
yeah.
Francisco.
But he
yeah.
jumps in. Well, it's the ocean. He's swimming
Well,
and he meets this. He gets to this buoy or whatever, and he jumps up there. And Venom finally comes out and reveals himself to Tom Hardy, and he goes, "I'm Venom," and I'm just like. How did you come up with that? Like, why are you Venom?
Right.
Like,
Well, they
where
have
does this
names.
come?
They
I
are
know, but
sentient.
okay, but so on their planet Flafluga, they're named Venom
Yeah,
and
that's his
Carnage,
name.
and like they just come out of
Toxin
nowhere.
and Scream and
I just don't. I don't know. To me,
There's a bunch of
again,
them.
this
They
I-
come from a foreign world, but they have English names.
Yeah.
right, and they speak English exactly.
what's the same? The aliens and Guardians of the Galaxy, though they do give them more alien names. So
Well, and
Yeah.
not only
I
that,
don't-
but Marvel does such a. This is the differentiator.
I don't think they have English
Marvel,
names until they fuse with someone on Earth.
Right.
They have their own alien name.
which is fine. But again, you have to build that into the story.
Yeah, yeah. He just
you
says,
have
"I
to
am
explain,
Venom."
and
Yeah.
for you to make a connection as an audience to actually think that it's not so out of the realm of possibility. Again, as a filmmaker, you're setting the rules
Mm-hmm.
at which this world's got to follow, and when you go beyond and cross the line of believability,
Yeah.
then all of the structure in which your story is being held up by fall down. And I think that this movie does that terribly. Both of them do.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And this one didn't do itself any favors by just continuing more of the same and ultimately falling flat in the end. I mean, you had an entire stupid scene where he's at a rave and he's wearing glow sticks.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
thought that
this
was
is
kinda funny.
straight
I thought it was
up.
funny too.
And it was. There's nothing wrong with the humor behind it. But as far as the narrative purpose it serves, it's literally more relevant to just social causes today than ultimately what it felt like was a throwback to like early 2000s superhero films, like a Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And I'm like, okay, this is what I expect from back then.
Don't do that. Sam Raimi Spider-Man was better than the rave
True.
scene.
It definitely
Except
had
for
way
except
better
for
taste.
Spider-Man 3 when
Dancing
he
down the
danced
street.
yeah.
The Saturday Night Fever.
Okay,
Saturday
and
Night Fever
I'm
off
even gonna. I'm
is
even
bad.
look. I rewatched Spider-Man.
It's not
3.
rave bad, but it's
What?
bad.
It's bad, but
Not yeah.
I think that having watched it almost 15 years, I guess, after its release, I will say this about that scene.
It's funny.
There's only one part about it that I thought was terrible, which I thought carried into the next scene of the movie, which happens to be him dancing in the bar and they do like a jazz number.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
bad.
a little far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the scene of him going down the street and
Yeah.
then him dancing and like everybody's looking at him ridiculous, I'm like, the point is comedy.
Yeah.
It is funny. So I don't know. I'm giving Sam Raimi some leeway there.
I
too, as
have
well.
problems with Spider-Man 3. That wasn't a huge one of it, but yeah, the jazz dance scene and Topher Grace in the church. Please kill Peter Parker. That was the dumbest line I'd ever heard.
Well, there was plenty of dumb lines in this movie too.
Yeah,
So
there is. There were a
Yeah.
lot of dumb lines in this movie. A lot of things that just never predictable too. Like there's one point where like the cops like running up the church to like up store, and Sean's like, "Where's he going?" And I said, "As like the bell tower," because
the bell tower. That's where it goes.
because
Yep.
I knew.
Well,
it's like,
oh my gosh. Okay, so here's what I did in the movie. I was bored. So when the bell starts ringing, I started timing how many seconds it took before it rang again.
Yeah.
It was different every time.
Of course.
Which
Yeah.
is just impossible.
Yeah.
But the bell would go dong, and it would be like 23 seconds before
Until
it
they
would hit,
needed
before
another
it would
one.
hit again, and it would only hit with the music that was going on in the
Yeah.
film.
And with the scene playing out a certain way.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it was really just stupid. If they punched each other at a certain time, it'd go dong when they
It's
hit
just-
each other. It was like this. I just couldn't get past that. I was like, wait a minute, now this
It wa-
bell
it was
is
just-
defying
Because when you've seen
all
movies
physics.
like Baby Driver and other movies that synchronize those things, and or even freaking Tenet.
Well, even
not
Yeah.
Tenet.
Spider-Man 3, because he's in the
Spider-Man
bell
3.
tower when he that's actually straight from the comics. Like in the comics, Peter tears Venom off originally in a church that Eddie's praying in, and with the bell tower, and it drips down on him. And Sam Raimi recreated that in the movie. So when he's in the church in this movie and Let There Be Carnage, and they're going up the thing, I'm like, their weakness is sound. They're going to the bell tower because we haven't seen that already before.
And I'm not gonna lie, the one thing I'll give it credit for in that scene is I actually did like is he freaking shoots his venom web, whatever it is, or even I think maybe Carnage does it, but rips the
the thing, which makes sense. Yeah.
to keep it from ringing. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
okay, that
Why
actually
didn't you just do that at the start?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, easier said
Yeah.
than done. I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, so no, I agree with you though, Sean. It's like when you have seen movies that have taken into account, I mean, that's the problem with so much of this film is it tried to rely heavily on visual effects to just be the wow factor.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we've seen plenty of these movies now in a completely different universe that actually stack up when it comes to character development and actually making me care about. I mean, I think you even brought up a quote recently about Marvel, and it's like everybody wants to compare them
Oh,
to
it was
theme park
I forget the
rides.
name of the movie critic. He was defending because like with Dennis Villeneuve recently coming out and talking trash about Marvel, and then of course Scorsese had done in the past. He had just said that there's a lot of people give flack to Marvel, but the fact is that the reason they're so popular is because when you look at blockbusters in the past, like what Marvel movies were made before, or even movies like Transformers, and it's like they're terrible. And it's like Marvel actually takes blockbusters and makes them good. And it's like not everything has to be, the Academy Award winning film. It's like Marvel makes good blockbusters,
Right.
and so people like them.
Yep.
So
And I think we would all agree here that it's like, yeah, of course, we enjoy and look forward to other blockbusters of different ilks, not just the Marvel universe.
when they're good, yeah.
You know, because I understand the whole Dennis Villeneuve comment of cut, copy, paste. I get it. But at the same time, while I am looking forward to the next Marvel movie because they have been
equally good.
I just think it's funny that Villeneuve would say that when he's doing a remake.
Yeah,
That's
true.
Dude, it is a
copy-paste.
remake.
Yeah. Well, I guess
a
you would
remake-
argue
well,
it's not copy.
Not as it only just a remake, but it's also based on a book. So I know it's changing mediums, but you're still taking the story
Right.
from the book, copying and pasting. You know,
I don't know.
it's
I'm-
different. I know
would
it's
argue
way
that.
different, but still, it's
I'm
like
just
it's
saying,
not an original idea.
I
is my
understand
point.
people arguing on behalf of we want originality, but that's been the age old. Of course we do. But then there's also times where original works come out, especially in the indie scene. I mean, we've repped on the show coming out soon. Lamb is something that's really bizarre and weird,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always have to be bizarre. and weird.
It
French
may be
Dispatch
amazing,
is
it may
coming
not be
out at the
good.
end of the
Yeah.
month.
Well, it's
like
Wes Anderson. It's still probably gonna be a little bizarre.
well, of course, but I'm just
But in a
saying,
good, yeah,
Yes,
in a Wes
exactly,
Anderson
in
way.
a good way.
Right.
He's
It's what we go to see his films for.
Exactly.
Yes.
He consistently delivers, and we know that he has original works. So they're still out there, and
Yeah.
people may want those, but you have to go and support them.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we also know that like big blockbusters like these, like Marvel films and Venom, are going to help spur on
Yeah.
what comes next. But I guess we got one more movie to
We
review
got
this week.
our Halloween movie review to go through.
I was going to say, we got to move right on along.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Let's get into, our review of Scooby-Doo.
Trick or treat, it's a happy Halloween. That's right, the Halloween movie reviews are back. And as we enter October and prepare for frights, the Red Moon crew realizes, hey, Halloween is more than just scares. So this year we devote our reviews to family-friendly films for the season, so that we can all have a happy Halloween. I have always had a macabre sense of humor, and blending spooky with fun has often created some of the most memorable films and shows through the years. But none more iconic than the show about a group of teenagers and their dog, who roam the country solving the spookiest mysteries around. Yes, I of course speak of Scooby-Doo. The characters are still the most iconic mystery-solving ghost hunting team in pop culture, and even received a new animated film last year. But we aren't reviewing that. Oh no, we are kicking off our Happy Halloween celebration with the first live-action feature-length film based off of the show. I speak of 2002's Scooby-Doo. Starring Freddie Prinze Jr. as, well, Freddy, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, Linda Cardellini as Velma, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and Neil Fanning voicing Scooby-Doo, the live-action adaptation serves as a love letter to the series while also spoofing the original show and themes. Written by James Gunn and directed by Raja Gosnell, Scooby-Doo was panned by critics upon release, yet has a cult following and is generally considered by fans as massively underrated. And I honestly feel they are partially justified in this belief. No, Scooby-Doo is not the best made film. Its CGI is terrible, even for 2002. The writing and dialogue is often terrible as well, and overall production value is poor. The movie looks and feels like a generic early 2000s VH1 production. But this is also a lot of its charm. Something about the movie still works. Something has still drawn fans to it despite it being universally panned. And it just might be the film does have a lot of heart and was obviously written by someone who loves the characters. The film is full of innuendos and homages to the original show that those adults who grew up watching it will laugh, while still being tame enough for kiddos. With allusions to Shaggy and Scooby being potheads and each actor playing over-the-top caricatures of their roles, the movie honestly does know its source material and is fun because of it. Each cast member goes all in, with much of the cast chewing the scenery and Matthew Lillard being such a standout as Shaggy that he would go on to become the official voice actor of the character. Where the film falls flat, I feel, is in how the humor is handled. Something tells me that if James Gunn had directed his own script, we would have seen a wildly different movie. Sometimes knowing how to deliver a line or display something visually goes a long way towards taking the off-kilter story and making it something brilliantly twisted instead of goofy. For what it's worth, Scooby-Doo will make the kids happy as Mystery Inc. tackles the spooky island mystery and saves the world. It may make most adults groan, but there is some brilliance hidden amongst the terrible execution. Enough to please the hardcore fans alongside the kiddos too. I give Scooby-Doo 2 out of 4 stars.
What? Scooby-Doo is better than Venom? Let there be carnage?
Yes.
How is
For,
yes,
what it
is.
was supposed to be,
I mean,
yes.
it's like we're going to have to compare the two because
Yeah.
it's like we just reviewed them on the same show.
and
One's-
we gave it a better score.
One's a movie made for kids, even though it does have some questionable moments. But
got
they're
some
all
innuendo.
they're all innuendos that
Yeah.
kind of go over the head. So I can forgive it of that. But yeah, one's mainly a kids movie that's goofy and silly, but still you could tell. Like I said, you could tell James Gunn is a fan of the characters. A lot of what the movie is spoofing.
I was shocked to
is
find out
spot
it was
on.
written by James Gunn.
Yeah.
I was.
I
just
could
didn't
tell
know.
watching the movie and the humor it's going for. I was like, I could easily see this movie being something way better if he had actually directed it. Because
True.
the director they got, I told you, I looked her up or him up. I don't know. And-
Raja.
Raja, yeah. And I noticed some of the other things they had directed were like Beverly Hills Chihuahua, like more than one of those movies. So I was like, yeah, that told me everything I needed. They had probably a script that was maybe a little bit more adult than Warner Brothers wanted from James Gunn. So they're like, here, you direct this and turn it into a more kid-friendly movie. Because there's definitely like the satire there. Like, I mean, even the whole like the Scrappy Doo thing being the point
Yes.
that everybody hated Scrappy Doo, and like James Gunn makes fun of that in the movie. There's a lot of moments that I really feel he gets the characters and makes the spoof off of that. And the actors definitely chew the scenery. Like, I mean, Freddie Prinze Jr. cracks me up.
Yeah.
Because he does just play this completely oblivious, ignorant character.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just.
But
it's-
he still has redeeming qualities.
Yes,
Each one has redeeming
And,
qualities, which
like
I like.
I said, Matthew Lillard was so good that he ended up becoming the official voice actor for that character after the original retired. So
Yeah.
there's definitely merit to some of it. It's just not the best done.
I would second that.
Him and Sarah Michelle Gellar are the only. To me, they were the two that fit the cartoon characters the best.
best, yeah.
But this movie was definitely. It's kind of like the Austin Powers of Halloween movies. In
Yeah.
my opinion.
That's
It
a,
was-
that's
it
a
was-
great or
Yeah.
kids Halloween movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's-
absolutely.
It is.
It's a
It is
great
okay
analysis.
to watch with the family. I did not revisit this film with my kids present.
Yeah.
But after watching it and kind of refreshing my memory because I hadn't seen it since it
Yeah,
came out.
well, you want to make sure.
Yeah, I would be fine with.
you have to make sure that the innuendos are only
Yes,
innuendos.
yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're nothing that my children would get anything from. So it's not
like
anything
the,
like that.
The
but-
Mary Jane. It's like, my name's
Yeah.
Mary Jane. That's like my favorite name.
yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean, it does. It fits. It fits the cartoon. It has the same. It has the same heart that the cartoon has. But I've never been like a huge
Scooby-Doo
Scooby-Doo
fan.
cartoon fan.
Same. Same.
So it's nothing. It's not like
Your
nostalgic or anything that stands out to me. But I mean, just as a film on its own, it
To
wasn't
me,
bad.
it struck the perfect nerve for just kind of going back to realizing when it came out, and also, like, I mean, the innuendo and the way it was
Yeah.
written. For one, it does let me know James Gunn is a fan of not only the source material, but he does faithful adaptations of things that I think he's hired to do, and I think he wants to do his best job in presenting the material for whatever
I mean,
film.
so
he
far
may
the only
be.
time he's let me down has been with Suicide Squad. So
Well, true.
I mean, and you know,
and it's not really because of the characters, more so the movie and the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than anything.
Exactly.
I mean, the
yeah,
characters.
he definitely does
writing was
dysfunctional
funny.
families very well, like
Yeah.
Scooby Doo, Guardians,
Yeah.
Suicide Squad. He definitely does dysfunctional like family.
It has that
characters,
quirky
yeah.
sense of not only quirky sense of humor, but odd.
Yeah.
and yet at the same time, not being a fan of Scooby Doo, I actually did find myself as an adult giving it a pass for some of the more ridiculous moments and some of the terrible CGI.
Oh, the
Yes.
CGI,
It is really bad.
even for
Not-
There's
2000,
moments where it looks like clay.
Yes.
like it's really bad.
for the year it came out, it's still atrocious.
Well,
Like-
I told Keith this is the same year Two Towers came out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
Yeah.
If only they
2002.
would have got Weta Digital to do that.
Well,
Exactly.
I compared it to be more fair because Lord of the Rings was above the CGI that any movie at that time had.
Absolutely.
So I compared it to the prequel Star Wars trilogy because that was
Yeah.
the same time
But
frame,
you
and
said
this was
Jar Jar
worse.
Binks.
This was
And it
worse,
was
than,
worse
Jar
than Jar
Jar.
Jar.
This was
Yes.
worse than Jar Jar.
I honestly, I put this other than
Yeah.
Scooby's not
Jar
this
Jar
bad.
came out in '99.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's like when Scooby jumps up into his arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the bottom of. You can see his arms, and it's like if he was laying there, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's that bad. He's
Yeah.
not even like. They're not even touching.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'll
it's
even
really
I'll
bad.
give
Whereas
them.
Gollum, when he's grabbing Frodo's cloak,
the freaking clothes
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
how do you
because
make
that's
a shirt do that.
Anthony Serkis is doing that.
Anthony
I know, but
Serkis.
Yeah, he knows how to
Anthony
do yeah.
Serkis.
He was a genius.
Vocab
but no,
genius.
I'll give them credit on
Hannibal
Scooby-Doo.
Leatherface.
I thought Scooby-Doo was somewhat decent for what they were trying to do. But I think the monsters they had in the film honestly reminded me of Reptile from Mortal Kombat. And the
Oh,
original.
yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was like 1995.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that.
So that was really bad.
It reminded me of Monsters Inc.
Yes.
Actually, Monsters
Actually,
Inc.
yeah.
look better.
But no, I mean, ultimately, for not being such a huge fan of the cartoon,
Yeah.
but also this was a movie that actually did make me laugh out loud as an adult.
Yeah.
And there were just certain things that either the characters did or the innuendos that they
And
played
you
off
know,
of that made me genuinely laugh.
We did the poll on which movies we would review, and I mean this one did win one of the 4 spots, but it was the lowest ranked, which is why we started first. And honestly, as like that entry into Halloween, because yes, it deals with ghosts and monsters, but it's not as deeply Halloween as the rest of them are.
Yes.
So it's kind of, I think, a decent way to kind of start the season and get you into like the spooky
break the
mood with
ice.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I definitely think what we review next from here on out.
What is our
each-
next movie review?
Well, if we're going in order, it'll be Ernest directly next, which I'm excited about.
I'm
Yes.
not.
That was my
I've never
favorite.
seen this film.
Ernest, okay,
Oh,
this is
gosh.
here's what I was
I
going
know.
to say. All of the movie, this is definitely, in my opinion, and we'll get to the official reviews, but in my opinion, Scooby-Doo is definitely the weakest of the 4 we have. So,
Wow.
So we're just
Okay.
going to go up from here.
Now, here's the thing: not having the nostalgia of Ernest when I grew up, because I didn't really have it of this. I'll be honest;
I'm
I
not
forgot a
saying
lot of
Ernest
Scooby-Doo.
doesn't have problems, because it does.
But
Like,
but
yeah.
is it going to be something that I'm going to laugh at as much as I did at Scooby-Doo? Because Scooby-Doo was much more mainstream than Ernest.
I'm not going to promise anything,
Have
but
you
I would,
ever seen any of the Ernest movies?
Yes, and I'm not a huge fan of Jim. I like what Jim Varney did. And I know he's got a certain brand of humor.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Ernest. I just never
okay.
was.
And you may not. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, personally, I think Ernest is a funnier movie. Like, Ernest Scared Stupid is funnier
Yeah,
than
it's
Scooby-Doo.
funny.
I mean, it makes it, I die.
I
laughing.
know
It has
the
an
whole. I
insult.
know that movie like by heart. It's so
But just
funny.
the-
And I'm looking forward to it.
So-
I'm looking forward to kind of dipping my toe into
It's
something
ridiculous,
I'm really not a
but
fan
it's a
of.
movie unlike Scooby-Doo, where I feel like James Gunn had one idea and the director had another. I feel like Ernest Scared Stupid is a movie that knows what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like the stupidity is funny
All
because
of his
it
movies
it
are like that,
embraces.
yes.
It's like we know we're being over the top and stupid, and I.
But
and I
is it
appreciate
over the
that.
top in a slapstick way? Because I'm not a fan of that.
Not like I wouldn't say like. Not
that-
three,
that's always
not Three
been-
Stooges slapstick,
No.
but yes, there is slapstick.
Yes, yeah.
So
Because that's always what that's
there is a lot of wit too. There is a lot of witty
okay.
dialogue.
Because
so.
of all the memories I
Yes.
have,
I mean, his changing of character is so freaking. It's so freaking good.
I
Like,
mean, of all
of the little characters that he
of the
plays.
the very few memories I have of Ernest, that's just my only memory is that
Yeah.
it's slapstick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it, but that is our next movie review for Halloween.
Yeah,
but
we have
Scooby-Doo.
that one, Casper, and then number 1, Brandon hates
Addams
it. Addams
Family.
Family.
I'm
That's
not
the one
looking
I'm
forward
looking
to
forward to the most.
I do love
so
that movie.
I love Addams
Yeah.
Family.
I'm just not that. Okay, another one. I'm more looking forward to Ernest than I am Adam's Family.
Oh man.
Now,
I've
see,
never liked Adam's
Scooby Doo
Family.
and Casper are the two that Scooby Doo is the bottom, but Casper
I love
never
Casper.
really liked Casper.
I like for being a live action, and again, I'm gonna bring this
I
up.
like
'cause
them all,
I think,
so
I think
can't
this,
complain.
This kind of makes me happy with the choices that thankfully our audience who
They chose. They voted. Yeah.
But
We had a big turnout. Like they had a lot of votes.
But one of the things that these films all had in common, and I think that a lot of films over the last, at least definitely the last decade, has lost, is that these had the ability to attract both kids and adults.
yeah.
Sort of the kind of secret sauce that Pixar has blended together, but there was also that innuendo that never went overboard that I think nowadays they either have to, it's got to be so subtle that it's just not funny, or it's got to be so overt that it's over the top and it's like, okay, that's crass.
Honestly,
like that's too much for a kid. And I feel like these movies in this time period from the 90s literally up through the middle of the 2000s, obviously our childhood, what we grew up with was a time where I think they played that very fine line very well.
They appealed to kids, but they still had humor that would appeal to adults that went over kids' heads. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
The difference though between like Ernest and I feel like Ernest and the Addams Family are the two that walk that line the best. But the thing is like Ernest doesn't have Addams Family. When you get to Gomez and Morticia, they have so much like sexual banter back and forth.
They have great chemistry.
Yes,
but it's
they have
all,
good chemistry,
it's
but I
all
mean, he
tame
talks
and
about he's like, I'm
innuendo.
gonna take you and cover you in
Yeah.
roses and do that, and it's like, yeah. So there's that little bit of that adult innuendo, but with Ernest, you don't have any of that. The adult innuendo or the stuff that the adults get is more Andy Griffith
Yes.
adult stuff than anything. Like there's
Yeah.
things that he says that you'll die laughing, and then you'll look at it'll cut to the kids' faces, and they're just like,
Yeah.
anyway, let's just get on our bikes and go after it. Like, it's like they don't get what he's saying.
Right.
It's only for the adults. You can tell that in those scenes.
They obviously
Where
draw attention
Adam's
to it.
family does kind of walk that line a little bit more with
I
some
feel
of the
like, yeah, definitely. I think Ernest is probably the most kid-friendly out of
Yes,
all of them,
yes.
for sure. I agree with that. And then maybe Adam's family. It's been a while.
It's
I
been a
know
long time since I've seen Casper.
Casper, I know, has a few curse words because I do remember like his
Oh,
uncles
but the
cussing.
the ghosts are the same way. The ghosts definitely have not only innuendo,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
they definitely have.
That's what I'm saying. I do know that. I just know that most of them were fairly mild. I do remember like there being a little bit more like cuss words in Casper than some of the others.
Well, and even
But
just
other
the,
than
again
that,
the
that's
content as well. I like what I think too is also an issue that we have with our culture, and this is a kind of a weird thing, is we've kind of flipped upside down what I think we should center on with regards to central topics of that may be too serious for kids, but you kind of have to start feeding them at a little age to let them know it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to wonder, and like something like Casper, you do kind of think as a kids film, it's questioning what mortality is and existence.
When he talks about how he died, it's dark.
Well,
We'll get there, though.
Yeah,
We'll get
that,
there.
but also, yeah. I don't want to dive into it, but now you have, I think, and I don't want to get political. I'm not going to go that route. You have other things that are focused on in today's films, or maybe are too. They're too kid. They make too kid friendly.
Yeah.
That you can't really grasp what it is they're trying to go for. They try to be too. I don't want to say even innocent. They try to be too like tiptoey. They tiptoe around certain subjects without what I think like when you talk about Fox and the Hound,
Yeah.
or even Bambi, when you watch about these kids films that our parents grew up with, and they see those, you're talking about something that's I think even more. I wouldn't say terrifying, but something that puts things in perspective a little bit more than just a kid-friendly film. And I don't think you either have two extremes these days where they go way overboard and it's too far and it shouldn't be a kids film, or they just don't entertain that thought at all. They
I
try
would
to just be
say
something stupid.
Movies
and silly.
definitely are not made the same today, and I mean they may not even get made at all here soon. So I mean,
Perfect segue, Keith. Oh my gosh, that's right. Let's roll into our headlines. Let's do it, guys.
oh my goodness, we got some nice headlines this week.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wow.
I just stopped the scatting and I thought I'd sing.
Yeah, I thought you were
Hollywood's
gonna go Evanescence on us for a second there.
Wake me up inside. Somebody save me.
What was? I did rewatch the first Spider-Man after we got home from Venom because I wanted to.
Oh,
And
that has a song.
And I
at the
forget
end.
that. Is it
The
the
Simple
Hoobastank
Plan?
song?
Oh no, it is Hoobastank. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. And I forget because I remember as soon as the credits started rolling, that song came up. I started dying because it'd been so long since I'd seen that movie, I'd forgotten. And I
In
was
the
like,
first
oh.
Spider-Man
Yes,
movie?
the credits.
I think the
There's-
credits
there's
are-
No,
like,
Hoobastank was a band back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was 2001.
2002
or 2002.
It was the summer of 2002.
Same year. as
Wow.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo. And look at the CGI, way better.
Yeah, true. But no,
And even in the first Spider-Man, there's some compared to today, like there's some moments with him and Green Goblin that I was like, ooh, that back then I didn't think it looked bad, but it definitely sticks out.
No, oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Still better than Scooby-Doo,
Which
though.
before we go on to the headline you just referenced, I just real quick want to mention this one. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it,
Yeah.
because really there's been nothing disclosed. But the lawsuit between ScarJo and Disney
It's
has
over.
settled.
Yep.
They settled out of court. They made, they shook hands.
Well,
they
of
said,
course
hey,
Disney did.
of course. Well, and hey, of course ScarJo did. There have to be two parties that agree at the end of the day.
Because again, I never thought she was being greedy. She just wanted, like originally she just wanted them to restructure her contract. So I think she was always happy to meet them at the table and settle something. It's just funny that after basically kind of trashing her and be like, well, she made $20 million, Disney was like, all right, let's fix this.
But she did too. I mean, not only did she, and maybe in defense of herself, but at the end of the day, when you're in defense of yourself that way, you would make it. It makes it sound like, oh, well, I'm never going to come to the table and agree with them because, well, they screwed me over that
But
bad.
she had never
Yeah.
said that.
She
so-
didn't, but I'm
Nope.
just saying that's the way it's perceived. So for
I
them
never,
to-
I never got that. I'm just saying.
look, I never
saying
got
I
that from
never do.
Disney either. I never got that Disney was just trashing her because they didn't want to work with her again. They were both
No,
basically
but I do
picking
think they
their
tried
sides
to,
of the
to
of the
throw her to
fence.
make themselves look better, which of course is what you're going to do.
Yeah, but fans took her side.
Exactly.
And that's why they caved.
Yep, that's exactly what it was.
They don't
is
want
that-
any bad publicity.
That's
so,
right.
Yep.
And they did. They have the deeper pockets.
Well,
but obviously they both came to a deal to settle and say, "Hey, looking forward to Tower of Terror.
yeah,
Let's move on
and
with
I'm,
future projects."
I'm excited for that one. That's actually something I've wanted to see them remake for a long time, so I'm hoping it's good. But I do think it speaks to something deeper because part of the issue she had was, of course, the percentage from streaming since she was contracted for theaters, and that's also one of the issues that all these production crews are having as far as going on strike. It's part of it, not all of it. So I do think it's interesting that Disney, Bob Chapek came out and said, yeah, we need to find a different way to pay people with streaming, and then they settled with ScarJo.
Yep.
And now we have a possible strike going on because of the same issues.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Our big headline for this week is that IATSE, not Yahtzee, IATSE.
And what does that mean, Brandon?
I need to pull up the article
Okay,
to
I'll-
read it. Do you
I'll-
have
I'll
it?
pull it. I have it up. Yes.
I'm doing a little bit here,
Um,
so I didn't have the chance to pull up an
So the
article.
International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. That's
Wow.
what IATSE stands for. Basically, it's the production crew, the little people that who's
Below the line.
the people, the people whose
the name.
names you don't even see in the credits a lot of times are doing all the work. They were working before the pandemic, 14-hour days. Sometimes they didn't even get days off. They said during the pandemic, they had settled to be able to only work 10-hour days. And then as soon as the pandemic was over, and this is part of their gripe, is because Hollywood's still touting, it's still the pandemic, box office numbers are pandemic numbers, yet they've said in Hollywood itself, despite what they say, they have been forced to go back to working 14-hour days, even though they're claiming the pandemic's over. But on set, the pandemic's not, or they claim the pandemic's not over, but on set, Hollywood's saying, oh no, it's over, you all have to work 14-hour days. And that's one of their gripes, is they're tired of working long days like that. They said it's not necessary. We can work shorter days
they
and
don't
still
get proper
like,
breaks for meals.
They don't get meal breaks. They don't get a lot. Part of it was the streaming residuals. They didn't know like how do they get paid based off of that because they're not getting anything off of that.
Well, and I wanted to bring up another acronym because we just love acronyms in Hollywood.
This is the production company.
This is I would say AMPTP, which stands for the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Now, here's the thing. To try to put it as basic as possible, and actually, I do want to put. I'm going to update our headlines after the show is posted to include this from the Hollywood Reporter. They did a really good job of breaking this down and who this is going to affect, and really, those that it's not going to. So when it comes to above the line and below the line. Below the line, like you said, are more the workers who are the day-to-day on a production set, who are considered, I would say, in the crudest way possible, replaceable.
Yes.
And you may not understand exactly who that is. That could be anybody from a production assistant, but all the way up to an editor, someone who is a makeup artist. People who are showing up on the set day in and day out to help the production finish. But ultimately, after the production is done, their job is done. When you talk about above the line, you're talking about producers, EPs, executive producers, directors, the main cast, so not your B-roll, but ultimately your A-roll
the
cast.
ones that still have to promote the film even after filming's
Yeah,
done.
your A-list actors that you're talking about. And you're literally in a situation
Basically,
of...
if you get an Oscar for it, that's a little bit more above.
Yeah.
If you get seen on TV, like actually aired winning your Oscar, you're probably above the line.
But ultimately, even then, I think...
There are some that are. I mean, the Oscars do award
like cinematographers are not considered above the line.
Yeah, they do award below the line people. I didn't mean only, but the big awards, the ones everybody cares about.
I was going to say, and I think obviously these variations mix depending on the set, depending on the studio. If it's a huge, this is one thing that I found interesting in the Hollywood Reporter article when they broke it down. Ultimately, it's like obviously you have these huge big budget productions with all these production studios, and then you also have you have reality TV, you have straight to video releases or straight to streaming. All of these different categories and all of these different groups, or you would say guilds, come together to create certain cases in the below the line or the below the line union members. They create guilds that create IATSE. Whereas your Directors Guild, your SAG, they're all separate. They're bigger guilds of union
They all
members
have
that have their own
unions.
union.
Yep.
And the AMPTP is kind of I would say, a board that comes together to say, we're working with all, we have our hands, and our ultimate goal is to work with all of these different unions and to get them to all come to some common agreements in which we can all create a contract and work together to create a production. And so you have the different huge studios, Warner Brothers, Universal, all these different big heads.
They're represented
represented by AMPTP.
Yeah, because it's basically like the producer, kind of a producer. It encompasses more.
It encompasses more, but
yeah.
they do work. They work with the Directors Guild, SAG, and IATSE.
Which the Directors Guild has actually come out in support of IATSE. They've said that they also urge the AMPTP to come to an agreement. And there has not been a strike announced yet. They voted on giving the president the authority to strike.
Yep.
So he now and it was a huge turnout.
98%.
Yeah, 98%, and 90% of members showed up. So 90% of members voted, 98% to give him the authority to strike. And what he said is he's going to approach the AMPTP first to try to make an agreement and say, okay, because he said he's already let the president of the AMTP know how the vote turned out. So they already know that they
saw
can strike.
It played out in real time on social media.
So what he's going to do is go to the table, say, all right, you know that if we're not happy, we're going to strike, and see what agreement they can come to. If they don't come to agreement, there will be a strike.
I don't know if you mentioned earlier or not, but it's 60,000 plus employees
for IATSE. That
could potentially strike. Yeah.
Right. And I was going to say, now when you talk about that, that's kind of the bigger question here is, what does this affect? And again, that's where in question, what it really affects are those who are in production right now that have IATSE members. Now, even then, IATSE is much bigger than those 60,000 when you include all the different guilds across the U.S. and Canada. Yeah. That's who it represents. And from my understanding in reading the details, this ultimately affects certain ones that had 2 agreements that just expired in September. And these agreements were what the AMPTP and IATSE agreed to. And those agreements expired. One was called the Hollywood Basic Agreement, and the other one was called the Local Area Agreement. One expired early in September. The other one expired on September 30th, which is why they held the vote to see if they wanted to strike. The point is that once these contracts, which were the agreements, expired, that was when the IATSE union members had the leverage to create a new contract with the AMPTP. And the whole point was to leverage that ability to create an agreement that would help them out in the end and get them the things that they've so-called said they're looking for.
Right.
The better hours, so less hours on set, actual meal breaks, and even what they're talking about, health benefits. A working wage is what they consider or what they call out. Now, granted, all of these details I'm sure are written out somewhere.
Oh yeah,
in
finer detail.
In finer detail, and here's the question: who knows if what they're asking for, they're biting off more than they can chew? But they've even said with the voting power they have, well, now the ball's in PTP's court, and what they're ultimately, hopefully, fighting for is that if they don't get these and they do strike, then that's going to be 60,000 people that Hollywood partners with that will walk off set in TV and in film. So some of your major studios that have films in production right now could cease production because they either have to find replacements for these IATSE union members or they just can't go on.
Yeah.
And that's a huge deal. Now, I did read in the Hollywood Reporter article, there were a couple different guild members that were not part of what's going on.
They do have production crew that aren't a part of this guild. So but that's the thing is we don't know how much of these crew members are with IATSE and how many aren't with IATSE.
Well, they're all with IATSE.
Yes,
it's dependent. The agreements only affect certain members within IATSE.
Yes,
and we're not sure if those are key roles in a production. Because if you have a crap ton of production assistants and makeup artists walk off set and they can't find anybody to replace them, then you're sitting there basically waiting with your hands tied on people to come in and
we
fill
don't
those
really
roles.
know how major it is, but based off of IATSE's president and what other key Hollywood insiders think, it seems like it could really shut down a lot of production on a lot of things. And I mean, we all remember the writer's strike that happened
That's right.
in the early 2000s. I mean, that shut down a lot of things as well and postponed things. And this really does, the ball really, I mean, IATSE really is in a good place because with things already being shut down and pushed back because of COVID, Hollywood doesn't want to have to shut down again. They don't want to have to push movies back again. And they've
they're already seeing the surge of the box office come back.
People are coming back. Hollywood's excited. It's like, oh, people are paying to see movies. It's like the last thing they want is to completely shut everything down again.
They also did state, too, that certain productions that were already set to by these agreement standards before the September 30th deadline will more than likely continue. So if you were a union member that is in this situation of whether you may or may not go on strike, if you're involved in a production which terms of agreement to work in that production were established before the September 30th deadline, then more than likely you're not going to strike. Yeah. They're still going to have to carry out your duty to fulfill your obligation. But, and most people would say, well, then weren't all films in production right now before September 30th? True, but look at how many are still yet to come. I mean, production doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you're on a TV show, what happens if you're halfway through a series and technically each individual episode is considered a separate production? Well, now you're all of a sudden off the set. You're not contractually obligated because you, by your union member status, is agreeing to strike.
Yep.
And so who knows what shows, what movies down the road may be affected if the strike happens.
Yeah.
And the reason that's a big if is because we're still in the situation where after the vote was taking place, which happened the results came in this past Monday, that they were willing to strike. They're now going back to the bargaining table with the AMPTP to try to resolve these issues.
Yeah, in fact, it says in this other article that they met today and that they were not able to come to any kind of agreement. There was a proposal made, but the proposal was very little difference between what they already had. So they said it amounted to just a big nothing burger.
So basically, the IATSE president is saying, nope, no go.
Yeah.
Like we're edging closer to it.
And I mean, they like I said, they're in a spot where they can do that. They're like, look, this is going to impact you worse than us for right now. I mean, obviously, the longer you strike, that's money that they're not making. But still, they're like, listen, you need us because you don't want to shut down again. And some of the again, I don't know all the details, but a lot of it doesn't sound unreasonable. I completely understand them wanting shorter work days.
It does and it doesn't because I don't know the details of specifics that they're asking for. Because here's the thing: you may say, well, a 10-hour working day is even that's still outrageous, but you got to understand, film sets.
Oh, I know.
Whether right or wrong, have been operating under a certain kind of agreed upon status, and only because of COVID were certain other entitlements given.
But still, just because something's been morally wrong for 50 years doesn't mean you let it continue.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But
they have the ability.
That's not the question here. It's not about morality.
Well,
if I agree to work a job and I know that I'm working 3 days a week and it's 14-hour days, or maybe even 3 or 4 10s,
right?
Or even if I agree and say 4 10s and whatever overtime you assign me, I have every reason to go and leave that job if I don't want to.
Yeah.
These people are expecting the union to do their bidding for them, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
You pay your union dues; they should fight for your rights.
The thing is,
but if they
building
don't,
a new contract, that's like,
exactly
so
that's true.
It's like, yes, if they were like, well, we signed this contract and we just don't want to do it anymore. It's like, well, too bad you agreed to 14-hour days. But now it's one of those things where I'm like, I can understand wanting shorter days. I'm not saying that was whether it's right or wrong or evil or not. I'm just saying that I can understand why they would want that. And if they have the ability to try for that because they're making a new contract, it's like I can understand them wanting to. Now, I'm not saying that they should jerk the production companies around and be like, oh, you have to do everything we want. But I think if it's within reason, and again, I don't know because I don't know the details. So it's just kind of a wait and see thing.
Yeah, this article actually says that there's a misconception regarding the hours worked, that they're not actually seeking they're working more than 10 hours right now. They're actually seeking 10 hours between shifts. So right now they're working in excess of to where they're only getting 8 hours between the end of their shift and the start of their next shift. So that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, if you really think of how we
no, I
get
would
8 hours
agree.
of sleep and we get 4, we're at
No,
like 12
I
hours.
would completely.
So
look,
then the other
here's
thing
the
is they have 54. They want a 54-hour weekend turnaround.
Right.
So they don't want
I
to
don't
work
think,
all
honestly,
weekend long.
based on the claims that I've seen, again, without looking straight into the details,
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree with any of the claims they're making.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, it's sad that it took a pandemic to get to the point of them saying,
Of appreciating them.
right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still have to open it up to what the demand is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, and this is what IATSE's betting on, if there's 60,000 employees just up and pull out and say, we're done, we're not going to work, if these major studios find other workarounds or even take a hit
Yeah.
and find other ways to fill the positions without the union, then that's a way in which the union is no longer nobody gives a damn about
Nope,
it.
nobody cares.
Yep.
And all I'm saying is, of course, I fully understand that these people probably understand what they signed up for with striking, just
Yeah.
like the writers did with the writer's strike. And we also know how bad that was. And I am definitely one of those. I mean, I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
The only thing is I know as Joe Schmo is to be like, well, I just want new content. I don't care how long it takes to get or when it comes. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
these big studios are doing. They're looking at the demand and they're saying, well, we got to meet this demand. But if we can't meet that demand, if production is now going to take a month longer,
Yeah.
because we've got to either give enough people the hours off that they're looking for, or we've got to hire double the staff to cover the hours that they're not there.
Yep.
So then it's going to drive up production costs.
Yeah.
And you look at all these different factors that, yeah, I'm not saying, and I know people will be like, but they're big, huge studios. They got plenty of money. Yes, but it's a business.
Yeah.
And every business is going to try to eliminate any factors of cost that they can for the utmost profit. That in turn benefits those who are being hired, whether it's for a living wage. Again, you don't have to be part of this industry.
Well, we don't even know what they mean by living wage. 'Cause I'm
Right,
sure,
I don't either,
I'm
yeah.
sure that they don't.
It
It's not like
varies
they're-
per location.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not on set making $7 an hour. I mean, maybe they are, but I just kind
I
of
can tell you right now,
believe
and,
that.
and this was, I forget how long ago this was. This would have been circa 2008-9.
Mm-hmm.
I was a PA for American Idol. Now, of course, PAs we were just hired. It was short-term, part-time.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
of course, I couldn't take union status, and I wouldn't want to. It would just rob my paycheck. But I think I got paid like $9 an hour
Yeah.
as a PA.
Yeah.
And again, I was a college kid. I was literally a freshman in college, and I was a production assistant on American Idol. I was like, hey, this is experience. And so many people are in that boat.
Yeah.
And I get how it's like, okay, if you don't know the battle you're waging or the fight you're trying to fight, then you can easily end up in a category where you are taken advantage of. And the odds are stacked against you, absolutely. But ultimately, the risks that they are taking on right now is that these production studios want to meet a certain deadline and they want certain things produced. And what IATSE's betting on is that the union members they have in their camp right now are enough talented, or are not only talented enough, but know the business and are the professionals that they're looking for, that if they walk off, they're not going to be able to put together a ragtag group of people to come in and help out on these productions. And so I fully understand what's on the table, and I think it's going to be interesting because I think ultimately at the end of the day, the consumers are the ones that are going to be like, whether we know the effects now or months from now, we're going to be the ones that are trying to come to
same thing with the writer's strike. And the thing with that, though, is it always tends to work with against the production companies because people don't know writers. They don't know who these They only know who Warner Brothers and Paramount and
again,
They
all
know
they
the-
care-
they know the logo.
I
Yeah,
want my
that's it.
cake and
Yeah.
I want it now.
Yeah.
so they're going to
They
blame
don't care
so
about
they're
the-
going to
the
blame the
PA.
higher ups because they're like, well, why don't you just pay them so they can go back to making my movies?
True. And at the end of the day, I do think IATSE's got. I think they're trying to bring things within the realm of what is a normal, and even still outside of normal work day for a typical American going to a 9 to 5. And yet at the same time, I think again I think you often kind of blend this mixture and this attitude of the normal working guy over here, and here's the struggling artist who just loves what he does. He wants to be there. And at the end of the day, you look at some of the movies that we've seen, and regardless of how much of it's done in terms of CG, You look at all of the sets that are built,
Oh,
the
yes.
makeup that goes into the creature creations
Yep.
that we've seen in sci-fi films, and
Yep.
all of the attentions to detail, and they truly are artists. And you look at those people who you may never know them by name,
Yeah.
but they really would work a 14 or 15-hour day
Because they're passionate about
because
the
they're
project.
passionate. But yet at the same time, it's the absolute matter of the fact of should they be deliberately made to, or should they willingly want to?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, I understand these qualms with these people who are coming to the studio heads and saying we shouldn't be made to put up with these conditions because we're just pushing out products that you all are going to make tons of money on.
Yes.
And we'll
Yeah.
never see the success.
Yeah, when
of.
people are compensated properly, they are willing to work those kind of hours. They
Right.
are willing to put in the extra when they feel like they're appreciated and they're being taken care of. If they don't feel that way, then why would you work that much? You've got Leonardo DiCaprio sitting in his trailer asleep for 6 hours, then he shoots for 4, and then he goes home. And then you've got the guy that's building the set, and he's there 16 hours straight building the set while Leo's asleep in his trailer. But Leo's the one making $20 million, and this guy's making $14 an hour.
Yeah, but
so
but,
I understand.
But
I
Leo
understand.
also
But here's the
brings
thing.
in all the money.
Well,
Exactly.
I understand that. I
Exactly.
understand that. But if you compensate the people properly, if you pay them what they're worth and what their talent is worth, your film's not going to get made without them. And acknowledge that and treat them right, and they will want to work 16-hour weeks without complaining about it, or 16-hour
Well,
days.
If you pay them, they will
but-
come.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, hey, Leo's out to make $20 million. This guy's out to make $20. So whatever
Maybe.
they're making,
Maybe. I don't know. That's the thing. I think it varies depending on
Yes,
how many
yeah.
years you've been in the industry.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest. I don't know, because a lot of times when these vague terms are thrown around, like, oh, we just want to make a living wage.
Living wage,
I
yeah.
absolutely
what's
believe
the
that
living
for
wage to them?
right.
Yeah.
But then again, then
We
you
just,
also
we just
see
won $180 million a year. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
right.
180.
Well,
I mean,
again, you don't
100,000
know.
a year is here in Kentucky. That'd be one
amazing.
hell of
But
a
in
wage.
California, that's
but in
nothing.
California, that's
Yeah.
not anything.
Yeah, but even then, even under those circumstances, it's like I still think of the glam, or it's kind of this you got to do your time kind of mentality. You see movies like La La Land where she's working at the coffee shop that serves the great actress, and then the next thing you know, she is one. And I'm sure every A-list actor, or even every A-list director or producer, anybody who's known by name, would tell you, I paid my dues. But yet at the same time,
Jim Carrey used to be homeless.
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
he probably still.
I don't
is.
want to bring
He
up.
probably still is.
He probably still is.
But it's like, again, I don't think you're going to find any particular person on any one of these film sets who doesn't say that they're not willing to put in the time, or ultimately that they haven't already put in the time if they have any notoriety.
Yeah.
And ultimately, my question is, are they fairly compensated? But that's a gray area. And we're going to see how this plays out. But I ultimately stick on the side of, if you're in a union, you got to go with the crowd, of course.
Yes.
That's what you voted for. And obviously, overwhelmingly, they have the support of most of the members in the union. But I think the scary nature of that is, and I think this is where we've gotten the problem, is you could say, well, but the guilds and Hollywood machine has created the huge blockbusters in the film. The AMPTP wasn't even created till the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Now, the freaking IATSE's been around since 1890-something. So it's been around a lot longer. And ultimately, I do think they're fighting on behalf of their union members. Yet at the same time, in the increasing digital age where we have competition from all sorts of atmospheres, you've got to ultimately say, well, where is your bread buttered? And in the coming generations ahead, are we going to see the big Hollywood productions only for Hollywood? Or are those going to expand out to a lot of other broader fields that don't necessarily have to be made in Hollywood? For instance, in the Hollywood Reporter article, and this will be the last point I make, they specifically mention Vice Media and Tyler Perry Productions, which is in Georgia, Vice is in New York, are not affected by this. And it's probably because they have individual contracts with certain people who come to work on their productions. And I think as you see more and more indie filmmakers like Blumhouse that can turn around $8 million movie budgets and turn them into huge mega successes, are going to have, not that they're anti-union, they're probably opposite. They probably want to work within the wheelhouse of Hollywood. But the more and more it becomes unpopular because you have too much friction between too many groups trying to please too many people, again, too many cooks in the kitchen, you're going to ruin it. And I think we've seen that now with as big as Hollywood has gotten. The studio model as it is broken.
No, I agree, and that's what I was going to say. Is I just enjoy watching Hollywood implode sometimes. I mean, we got to watch Facebook implode. Now we're getting to watch Hollywood implode. It's fun when these people that are too big for their britches sometimes get taken down a peg. So
Yeah.
True. Absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for our discussion and our headlines this week. Let's move on, yes, to our Vices segment. Let's roll that beautiful open.
I was looking at the buttons because I really wanted to push one, but they're all the same, and I'm tired of them.
Good. That's why I won't change them, to keep you
just-
from pressing.
Nothing
bored.
fits. It's just like
Take it up with the union.
handle the truth.
That's
like that kind
yeah.
of fits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. My truth.
All right, what's our vices?
bring your
It's
truth to
10:15.
power.
It is. We got to move on. We're going to be a little long-winded this month because we got two reviews.
Yeah.
But
It
no,
happens every year.
our Vices topic, you brought it up, Sean, a few weeks ago, and we went with it. Do you mind introducing it?
Sure. What vices have you given up?
Crack.
That was a tough one. I
That was a
remember
hard
that.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were some long nights.
Mine was the salts. What is it? Bath salts.
Bath salts, the salts.
The salts.
It's like I gave up
That's
kosher.
hey,
I gave
when-
up
like-
sea
he's
salt.
like-
I gave up.
he's like
When
the
you're
salts.
into it, that's what you call it. You just call it the salts.
The
It's
salts.
like, give me some of the salts.
Chasing the shadow people.
Chasing the shadow people.
Eating homeless people's faces.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, I mean, what else are they there for? You know.
I don't know, man. This one's hard. Because I think most of the vices I indulge in pretty frequently that I know.
It's like I don't. Once I find a vice, I don't give it up.
That's the very definition of a vice. I can't help
That's
it.
right.
Oh man.
I try giving up,
I mean, there's
overeating.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the
I
one
try.
that definitely need to.
Sweets.
I mean, there's things I've gotten into that fade, but I always
Beer.
come back to them. Like I know, like
Oh wow. I mean,
beer?
that's a good point. You can give them up for a little while, but
It's like I'm never permanently giving, I think, anything up because sometimes I'll just be like, man, I miss doing that, and then I'll go right back to do it. Whether it be like using my, because I don't use it as much now because I leave it here at Brandon's for the show. We just
True.
don't, we're just too lazy to mess with it. Is honestly
Yeah.
what it is. Like I could ask every week, hey, can I take my camera? But
yeah,
I just don't want to have to haul it back and forth.
yeah.
Well, I
actually took
appreciate
mine.
it.
You took mine.
Yeah.
So, because that was one of the
Well,
things
that's
that I
for
thought
you
of
that
was
is
like my
much bigger, yeah.
photography equipment. Like I spent thousands of dollars in lenses and cameras, and I've done it 3 times over, and it's I don't ever touch my SLR camera anymore. I mean, even the mirrorless that I moved to,
Yeah.
I don't touch it. I just use my cell phone for everything now, and it's just like it's the camera sits there. It's like $2,000 worth of crap just sitting in a bag, and yeah, that was a huge vice for me. I'd say like 5 to 10 years ago. It was huge. Like any bit of extra cash I got, I was saving to put towards this one lens that I would, I'd use it for 3 or 4 weeks, and then it was like, well, I'm bored with that. So it was like, what's the next what's the next creative thing that I can come up with the camera? It was like it was never enough. It was never
Right.
satisfying. So
Which
that
is
was
all-
one
that-
thing that
that-
I
that's-
had to eventually just say, okay, I don't use this enough. It needs to just sit there. Eventually, I'll probably sell it. But it's like, for now, it's just going to sit there, and I'm not putting
I
anything
don't
into
know,
it.
but some of those things too, though, it's like, why would you sell lenses when they don't really lose their value? I mean, it's like
Well, if you're never going to
But
use
that's what I'm saying.
again.
They don't
True,
lose their
but-
value. I could sell them for what I paid for
true
them
if you're
and get my
not going to
money
use.
back.
I don't
Yeah.
know. There's things like that where I'm just like, I'm a hoarder in that sense.
But that's
where
the
I'm like,
thing,
if I'm
yeah.
going to use
Yeah.
it, if
It's
there's
like-
a possibility of
Yeah.
me using it again, I probably will.
I'm bad about that too. I think that's probably why I've never permanently given up any vices because I'm like, well, I may use this one day, and then like 5 years from now, I'll be like, oh, I'll try that out, do it for a couple of days, and then not touch it again for
Yeah.
another 5 years.
Yeah. yeah.
But no,
I did that with. It's funny, like when I would during the pandemic and stuff, and when I didn't have like before I got my current job, I was jobless and stuck at home with nothing to do, and I did build some Legos. And I actually enjoyed it. That I was like, man, I just want to collect, like, just build different Lego and put them up and like movie themed like Lego sets. But the problem with that is I was jobless and Legos are extremely expensive.
They are.
So,
Have you seen them now?
Oh yeah.
They're ridiculous.
Because of China
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that stuff, they went up. They're almost double the price.
Oh yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like
I
everything.
just So it's
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like that one kind of died before I really could even get that far into it because I was like, well, I can't afford to do Legos.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I mean, technology in general is just a vice for me in buying the latest, greatest. I mean, I have gotten better about trying to stave off like being up to date on the most current. Now, if it's like software or something that I can get for free, I mean, I will say one vice, and it's not really a vice though because it's still the same category. Like I went more to digital media than hard media. So like I don't really buy movies on Blu-ray or DVD anymore.
Yeah.
I just
I don't
buy
buy 'em at
digital.
all.
Yeah, and so it's like I literally it's not a really good
Yeah.
vice to get rid of. It's like oh, I don't
'cause
have to
if-
get up and change
If
the
the
disc.
internet goes down
Yeah.
like Facebook, you don't have your movies anymore.
Exactly. And so I have a drawer full of like actual Blu-ray movies.
I actually do
but I don't ever
agree.
get up and use them.
I do agree with that one. More so, not movies. Like if it's a really good movie I want, I still would buy that. But video games, I used to only buy physical copies because I wanted to have a hard copy, and now I don't want to fool with it. And I pretty much strictly now I'm only like digital. Like
See, I'm too cheap for that because I buy a $60 game and I'm like, I don't
ever sell my games.
I don't like it, so I want to sell it. I want to get rid of
Yeah,
it.
see,
and
I love the option of having that option, but I don't.
Yeah, I
Okay,
never.
that's another one.
The only game I ever bought and sold was No Man's Sky.
oh,
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything
I
I
sold that 2 weeks after.
yeah. Yeah, same.
I did too, and that's the only time I've ever sold a game. I bought.
Cyberpunk, I sent back the same week I bought it.
Oh, yeah.
Sent it
no,
back
actually,
3 days later.
I was gonna say I did get the refund for that.
Yeah.
But that was only because I was like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
play
but
this
I
game.
bought a hard copy, so I just sent it back to Amazon.
Yeah.
No
But
questions asked.
although it is, which these aren't really vices. This
no,
is more like
I understand.
Well, I would say
'Cause-
as far as like the update, because I will say that is something I used to let go. As far as like, I was really addicted to like every Apple release, and there was a time when like I would get like the new phone almost every year, and then I stopped doing that because it's like they stopped being these big innovations, and I didn't care anymore. So like this one I'll have for almost 3 years, and then the updates are the same thing. I used to like immediately as soon as I knew a new iOS is coming out, I'd immediately update to that. I still don't have iOS 15 on my phone.
don't.
Yeah, see, I do.
Buggy as
I do.
hell.
I do the beta thing, so I
And
get
see,
every.
I'm too scared of that, and then I'm almost like I'm glad you do it because then it's like I think the main version
Well,
that
then you
comes
think
out
it's
day
safe,
one
but
is
then it's not.
stable, and then which
Yeah.
most of them have been except for 15. It
Yeah.
was awful.
Yeah.
but no, I would agree that, but also one thing, it's a vice that I guess I'm trying to give up.
Oh, crack cocaine.
Yeah,
I can help.
You already said
He's
crack.
been through that.
I gave
Yes.
it up. You're trying to now.
No, bath salts. I told you. That's what I'm hooked on.
We can't give up more than one at a time. You'll go crazy.
That's true. You need one to level off the other. But no, I really do think that one thing it's weird. I've realized this with my weight is I fluctuate,
Yeah.
and I do go through like valleys of, okay, I'm doing good, I'm fit. And then I go back to, okay, a weight. And each time it kind of edges out and gets a little bit heavier than I was the previous time. And I think I'm finally at this plateau of like, okay, no, this is the heaviest I've ever been. But yet I don't want to get any heavier. I want to maintain what I am and get, obviously lose weight and get healthier. And so I do feel like I'm determined to at least start making that gradual step towards saying, okay, I'm done. I want to put this aside. But obviously you can't say that till you've done it,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to make that choice because you get comfortable with a certain lifestyle, especially when it comes to, I don't know, comfort eating is always just been a thing, whether I'm stressing or whether I'm just watching a movie or playing. I got to have something to nibble on. And all of us don't.
I was thinking, I was like, it's harder for you because it's like, it's like, oh, you need some little dibble on. It's like, eat some celery, but you wouldn't do that.
No, I can't eat fruit or
Carrots.
or
Celery's
wanna eat
not
carrots?
I was
celery's
gonna
not
say
a fruit.
or vegetables, fruit or veggies, nothing healthy. Now there's certain things like pickles. I'll eat a pickle.
It's
Carrots,
healthy because it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
high in sodium.
It's not that bad. It's not
Pickles
that
are
bad.
very
They're
high
not
in
that
sodium.
terrible, but they're not that
They're
bad
sitting
for
in
you.
salt water.
Okay, here's the thing: eat
And
a pickle or eat a bag of Skittles. the pickle's going to be much better in that circumstance.
It depends. One's
Yeah, the
high in
pickle's
sugar, the
better.
ot's high in sodium.
The
So
pickle's high.
it depends on
Pickles
your
are not
choice.
that
If you're
bad.
less
Yeah.
worried about
They're not
sodium,
that bad.
then
At least the
All-
pickles are natural.
I would say no. You're right. In
Still
all
a cucumber.
in all
that would be
all regards other than sodium, it is healthier.
yes.
You're right.
Yeah,
There
that's
you
true. True statement.
And same with ramen noodles. It's like just that
No,
sodium.
those are not.
Oh no.
Those are pure carbs and sodium.
That's what I'm saying. Those
Yeah.
are terrible. It's like you can live on it as a college student
I
because you
remember
still got
seeing-
your like. You could still.
It's fine if you eat a bowl of ramen and then go walk a mile, but if
Yeah.
you eat a bowl of ramen and
Same
play
with
5
the
hours
Big
of Death
Mac.
Stranding,
Look at Asian people.
I
Asian
can eat a
people
Big Mac and
ramen
run
all
5
the time.
miles.
Look at them.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah, it's a little different. When
well,
you're
yeah, they're running from
making-
their government all the time.
They're out there freaking
right.
backbreaking
They have
labor.
instant ramen. in
I'm
Asian
sitting at a
countries.
desk
$2
for
an hour.
8 hours a
Ramen,
day.
too.
It's like it ain't easy making Nikes, man.
Yeah.
I'm
That's hard
serious.
work.
It's like you sit, and that's one thing I have noticed is because I'm in a less
Oh,
physical
yeah, yeah.
labor job, then
You
and
gain
I'm at a
weight.
desk
Yep.
job, you gain weight,
Yep.
and so
Absolutely.
you have to be proactive about working out. It's making that lifestyle change and a habit change.
Yeah.
But I've learned through trying to give up the certain vices I have, it is about moderation because, like you said, if you do just try to give it up cold turkey, you're going to go back, and it's almost go back twice as hard.
It's also like
and
you know,
indulge more.
focusing on that long-term goal too, because short-term sitting at home binging Netflix all day makes me happier, but long-term it makes me fat and unhappy.
Right.
Short-term running makes me extremely angry and pissed off, but long-term it's better for me. So I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, I actually Dennis Prager brings this up. He's talking about, what's better, doing something that makes you happy or doing something that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And he said there's a difference. He says if you do something that makes you feel good, it's momentary. It only lasts in the moment. He says when you do something that makes you happy, it's putting your mind and working hard towards a goal that once you reach it, it may have been, you may have just trudged through the worst to get to it.
Yeah.
But once you complete it, you ultimately feel much more fulfilled and you are happy. That happiness is lasting. And that's the difference between happiness and feeling good. And I think that's it's a
Well, I
good
think
way of
Netflix
looking
makes
at
me
it.
happy, so I'm okay.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Until all
You
these
don't know.
movies come out that are horror based, and I'm just gonna watch all of it. And
I've
binge
already
it throughout
started,
the month.
so I mean, my next show is probably going to be The Haunting of Bly Manor, so I'm
There
ready
you
to go.
There you go.
I still need to
I'm
watch
looking forward to
Foundation,
you.
though.
I still want to watch
You
you.
season 3,
I
baby.
don't. Yeah, I
That's
don't
gonna
care
be good.
about you. I've not seen any of that.
It's because
so.
you haven't watched it. You're not hooked. Okay.
I don't. I don't want to.
It's so good.
I'm gonna go watch Squid
It's
Game.
messed up.
In a teenage drama kind of way,
Yeah.
but it does get
Well, I
mature.
think that's probably it for the show.
that is.
When he said teenage drama, I almost said XOXO.
Well, if you have any vices that you've given up, and it probably beats ours because we're terrible and haven't given up any of our vices, yeah, I'm still drinking.
I mean, we.
Still drinking, still smoking.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
please,
Still fat.
overweight.
Still play video
Oh,
games.
I'm going to Taco Bell after
Still-
this.
God, that sounds good.
It's so
That really
good.
does sound good.
I'm telling you.
I don't want to talk
Except for when you pull up the drive-thru and they're like, so here's what we don't have. We don't have beef or chicken.
Yeah, I hate that.
Right.
You
I'm
go
like,
late at
what?
night
I wish
anymore.
McDonald's would just start with our ice cream machines doesn't work.
Yes.
I wish they would just start with that.
Did y'all see that meme? It said, "Oh yeah, by the way, while Instagram was down, we fixed the ice cream machine."
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
No, I think they got pressure from
It's a
the
government
FDA
conspiracy. It's
investigating.
a conspiracy.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
ever since then, I've been back and it's worked.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. Oh, the government's going to investigate. Oh, it's fixed.
Oh,
it's fixed. It works. Same thing with Facebook. Oh, the government's
Yeah.
investigating us. Systems down. Systems
Yeah.
down.
No,
Yeah,
that's
they
planned.
were deleting servers and,
Yeah.
and shred documents. That's what they were doing.
What do you mean wipe it? Like with a cloth? Alrighty, guys. That's going to do it for this episode. But yes, email us, RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. Right there at the bottom of your screen. Boom, boom. You can see it. If you have any vices that you've given up, or if you have any interesting movie stories or movies that you've seen and you want us to talk about or you just want to tell us about, we'd love to hear from you. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are live every single week here on the Red Moon Podcast, Tuesdays, 9 p.m., YouTube and Facebook. If Facebook doesn't go down, that's
It
always
came
in
back up
question.
for our show.
It did.
Just in time.
They
Just in time for us
deleted
to-
everything they needed to, and they feel pretty comfortable now.
and now we're the only thing that exists on the platform.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Until we get flagged again.
I was going to say, that would never happen. It would be the opposite. We would be off the platform. Alrighty, guys. Thank y'all so much. Until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and...
I just like playing with things.
I like that. Sounded good.
It did.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.